at the cigarettes. But she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Is this the takeover?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers are back at 500 after last night's 17-point win over Dallas at Crypto.com. Anthony Davis messed around and almost got a triple-double. 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists. D'Angelo Russell led the Lakers with 29 points. LeBron had 25 and 9 assists. The Lakers are at home Friday night against Brooklyn. LeBron's son, Bronny James, played a season-high 30 minutes last night in USC's Pac-12 conference game at Arizona. Bronny had 11 points and 6 assists. USC lost by 15. The Trojans are at Arizona State on Saturday. UCLA's men's basketball team overcame a 15-point deficit in the second half to win by 2 at Arizona State. The Bruins got 18 points from Lazar Stefanovic. Two historic HBCU football programs will play each other for the first time in 75 years. Grambling is hosting Tuskegee on September 7th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Climate is king.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that caring for the community means caring about the climate. You might have heard that we announced a pretty bold 12-month, $2 million campaign to do 4 things. Increase climate literacy, turn up the volume on communities of color in the climate conversation, connect everyday people with the resources they need to survive and thrive, and highlight frontline climate justice crusaders of color throughout this year. KBLA Talk 1580 will be bringing you insightful interviews on all of our shows to help raise your climate IQ. Each quarter this year, we will also be hosting free climate events in various communities throughout the city with food, fun, and forward-thinking conversations. Thanks to partners like LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, the Sierra Club, the California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, AQMD, MWD, and more. You'll also be hearing more about a couple of national town halls broadcasting live from Los Angeles, to which you will be invited. And we'll be rolling out a robust social media campaign on all our platforms, as well as an outdoor media campaign, all designed to educate, enlighten, and empower you in our fight for climate justice.
We want cleaner air.
Caring about the community means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world. If we care enough. If we care enough. If we care enough. If we care enough. If we care enough.
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole world's addicted to the drama, only attracted to things that'll bring the trauma. Overseas, yeah, we trying to stop terrorism, but we still got terrorists here living in the USA, the big CIA, the Bloods and the Crips and the KKK. But if you only have love for your own race, then you only leave space to discriminate. And to discriminate only generates hate. And when you hate, then you're bound to get irate. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate. And that's exactly how anger works and operates. Man, you gotta have love just to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love, y'all.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. When you practice what you preach and what you turn the other cheek. Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love?
KBLA Talk 1580. The love is right here. And I'm inviting you to call in, give love, show love, or the opposite of that. If you want to break down something that is upsetting you, something that we need to know about, I would love to hear from you. 800-920-1580. 800-920-1580 is the number to call. So many great conversations this week. If you missed them, I hope you will hunt them down wherever you get your podcasts or download our app and get them. First of all, Chiquita Twyman on Monday talking about the murder of her brother, Ryan Twyman, at the hands of the LA Sheriff's Department, and really going in depth about how that family struggled for justice and how they feel about receiving some measure of it. That is Chiquita Twyman. You can get that wherever you get your podcast. The conversation on Tuesday with Joe Michael Nixon, a.k.a. the Idea Man, a man who allegedly robbed 27 banks and most definitely is now one of the leaders, along with his partner Vincent Bragg, of one of the most powerful ad agencies in the country, is both inspiring and informative. So if you haven't heard that one, the conversation with Jarrett Hill, award-winning journalist, was definitely worth checking out and listening back to again. So lots and lots of things. And of course, if you're tracking our Freedman Friday show, last week we had Friday Jones, aka Kansa Muhammad. That is available for podcast as well as on our app. The week prior, we had Kevin Cosney, who is, of course, over the Black Power Network. Friday Jones, Kansa Muhammad, is a Los Angeles reparations commissioner and a national activist on the topic. And tomorrow we will have Dr. Cheryl Grills, who is on the California Reparations Task Force, and she will be joining us for another edition of Freedman Friday. So you definitely don't want to miss that. We are keeping this conversation going. We are creating a comprehensive reparations conversation. All comers, all factions, every single organization is invited to the table. Let's talk it out, hash it out, work it out. Let's understand what's going on. Let's get this momentum in hand and continue to push the line. All these things are so important, and I am really honored and privileged to have the chance to do that here at KBLA Talk 1580, even as we have taken on this gigantic climate justice initiative. You'll be hearing more about climate justice. You'll be hearing about the events and campaigns that we are unveiling. So we are on a mission here, along with our partners at LA Metro, LADWP, our partners at the AQMD and beyond, who are really looking to make sure that the interests and voices of Black people and BIPOC folks are at the table during the climate emergency, make sure that we are well informed and that we can push the envelope like we always do. So I'm really proud and happy to be part of that. You know, I'm always talking about this climate emergency. To me, it is a priority, because if we don't have breathable air, if it's too hot or cold to sustain human life on our country, in our country, in our nation, on our globe, we all share the same air. You can't wall off air. You can't build a wall for air. Then everything else is just moot. Like, why are you? Every other issue, sadly, is subsumed when we can no longer live on a planet and we leave an unlivable space for our loved ones. And of course, we can do better, and we will do better. And KBLA Talk 1580 is doing our best to lead the way in that particular space. 800-920-1580, the number to call if you have something to say. Yeah. E. Jean Carroll case is going on right now. What is that? Yet another problem for he who shall not be named, the 45th president, who remains the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party of today, right? And when I think he might be psychic. Remember when he said he could stand on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and still have the adoration of his his core audience? Well, it appears to be true. Yesterday was the second day of testimony in his second defamation trial against E. Jean Carroll. And the judge, Judge Lewis Kaplan, is not playing. He rebuked Trump's lawyer at least 14 times over the course of that day, telling her to sit down, rejecting a sidebar, and just really trying to throw down the gauntlet because Trump and his lawyers feel like they are above the law and they can just talk about judges, endanger jurors, make lengthy speeches at any time, et cetera, et cetera. I think it astounds me that this doesn't seem to impact his approval ratings or his support, but I still have hope that it will erode it around the edges with those independents, with those that are on the fence, with people in the Republican Party who do have a conscience and start to think, is this really what we want to empower and have in office? If you remember, Trump lost the first case, although he was not found guilty or liable for rape. Sexual assault is as far as they could go. The judge made it clear that that's only because in New York City, the legal definition of rape is very narrow, since he didn't actually put his orange missile anywhere, inside of her. That technically doesn't count as rape, even though he did violate her with his fingers, allegedly. Well, the jury says he did, so he did. It's not a criminal case, so it's only, civil liability. $5 million for that case, and then he talks smack about her after that case, and her lawyer said, can we add the latest round of, defamation to the next case that's coming up? Judge says yes, and so now on top of the $5 million, she could get another $10 million. And it's clear that even though he lied and said he did not know Eugene Carroll, it's not just the photo that I pointed out to, I think it's Fred, our friend who calls in about this, who's a black Republican, part of our KBLA delegation. It's clear from the way that they are defending, the way the lawyers are defending the case, that they know that is not going to pass the giggle test, that he doesn't know her, because that is not the defense that they're taking. What they're basically saying is, well, she wasn't traumatized, and she didn't, this didn't ruin her life. It made her famous. It made her rich. I think that's a terrible defense myself, because you're basically kind of conceding that he may have done it, but hey, it helped you. So what if I sexually assaulted you? You're famous and rich because of it. That's your defense. It still doesn't make it legal, moral, or allowable under the law. And I hope that the jury sees it that way as well. I know $15 million ain't a lot for him, but all of these judgments, fines, lawyer fees will add up. And we don't even know if he was a real life billionaire or just played one on TV. But nobody wants to, pay $5 million here, $500,000 there, $10 million there. That's how you end up broke, billionaire or not. Let's go to Howard calling us from Watts. Hi, Howard.
Oh, hi. Thank you for taking my call. I just want to call your attention to something that happened last week. Put on your radar what happened in Guatemala last week. They elected a democratic government. They got rid of the oligarchy there.
Yeah.
Just pay attention to that, because Guatemala tried that before, back in the 50s. They were overthrown, and dictator came in.
In the 70s, too, if I'm not mistaken, the United States likes to install terrible, disgusting, far right-wing dictators. I don't know that we can say, Howard, that we got rid of the oligarchy, or they got rid of the oligarchy there, because they tried really hard, not to even confirm the results of that election, right? And it was the indigenous people, the Indians that made the difference in that election. Yeah, it's Bernardo Arevalo is the guy's name. They tried not to even swear him in. They tried to pull a DJT. And finally, they begrudgingly swear this guy in. He goes and speaks to indigenous people, but the indigenous people who organized for him and put him in office are already complaining because he's only got one indigenous First Nations person in his cabinet. It was a whole Rudy Giuliani type situation where the rich oligarchs were seizing ballot boxes and trying to say that the election was stolen, blah, blah, blah. They tried to actually dissolve this guy's party, Bernardo Arevalo. They said that his party was not legal. They started criminally investigating him, and he called it a slow motion coup, but he's finally been sworn in. I'm glad you brought that up because I've been meaning to talk about it. They're our neighbor. If you live in Cali, they're our neighbor to the south. But also the United States has a long history of supporting these violent, undemocratically installed leaders there in Guatemala.
Well, you got also, thought. But like you said, it's going to be a gunboat diplomacy, and in our recent history, Nicaragua would install a democratic elected government and things. They spent the money that they wanted to make improvements on defense to keep people from attacking them all the time, like the Contras. So I think we're going to see the same thing in Guatemala. And also, you got to think about the fact that this is important to us because all of the migrants are coming from that part of the world, Central America and Mexico, South America, Venezuela, all the way around Venezuela. So it's going to have an effect on this country, too, as far as the migrants go. And a lot of the migrants are coming from those countries down there.
That's a really, really good point, an important point, Howard. Because when we keep destabilizing these Central American governments, the drug trade thrives. You see, a lot of the people, if you live in LA, I'm not sure if it's like this in Texas and even in Florida, but in California, a lot of those migrants are from Guatemala. A lot of them are indigenous. Those are the very people that in the infamous city council LA Fed tape that Nuri Martinez was disparaging are the indigenous people, saying they were short and brown and all this. Well, those folks, if they finally get their voices heard and they finally have a real democracy and we can stop interfering and allowing these, as like you say, oligarchs to just have their way, maybe less people would have to flee. And, it looks like for once the United States may have been on the right side of the election in this particular case.
Well, we just have to wait and see. And also, you got to realize that we depend on these people to do a lot of farm labor. Like I was in Alabama recently, and all the time I've been there, first time I went there back in 2006, my cousin lives downstreet from a family. That was my first time there, and I was there about 10 or 20 minutes going to the house, and I saw the family and said, where do they come from? In Alabama, and they have a big stronghold in Alabama because they're doing a lot of the menial tasks, like the tire shop.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks that you are assuming are Mexican are Guatemalan, and a lot of them are indigenous people that may speak another language besides Spanish. They're Mayans, right, for the most part, and other indigenous groups. And according to the Washington Post and other reports I've read, the Biden administration was pressuring some of these folks you're calling oligarchs behind the scenes, and then, threatening sanctions and making public statements to push this across the finish line. Thanks so much for bringing that up, Howard. Continuing the conversation, you're welcome in. 800-920-1580. We are unapologetically progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
Don't miss out on limited-time appliance deals during the closeout event at Lowe's. Get up to 35% off select major appliances. Plus, save an extra $100 when you spend $999 or more on all major appliances. Hurry, these deals are too good to last long. Shop in-store or online today. Because Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid 1/4 through 1/24. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for details.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
It does indeed, and you can do like Howard and call 800-920-1580. Yes, Howard made some amazing points, and I'm really, really glad that you brought up this situation in Guatemala, because when we start getting an idea, a global understanding of what we're faced with, it's really much easier to understand immigration and less easy to be fooled by those talking points that do not serve us, that create more and more and more injustice. And to Howard's point, I'm looking at this article in the Washington Post. And what they say, they're talking about how the Biden administration actually stepped in and supported the democratically elected, candidate after the rich folks were coalescing to try to get him out of there, ban the party and all these things. This guy is a pro-indigenous man who is part of an anti-corruption party. His name is Bernardo Arevalo, and he was sworn in this past weekend after the U.S. did a behind-the-scenes diplomatic effort, strong-arming folks to make sure that actually happened. But I'm going to read what they say here. They say that such an effort occurred in Guatemala is particularly remarkable. In 1954, the CIA backed a coup to oust the country's democratically elected leftist president, Jacobo Arbenz. President Ronald Reagan praised a military dictator, General Efrain Rios Montt. And sidebar from me, not just praised him, propped him up, gave him money, and backed him. That dictator was later convicted of the genocide of indigenous people, allegedly sympathetic to Marxist-led guerrillas. That conviction was overturned, but he was back on trial when he died in 2018. And then this guy replaced, Giammattei, he was another... he was accused of corruption. He was in good with all these oligarchs that you're talking about who have ties to the drug cartels. They're not just your garden variety rich people. These are folks that have verifiable ties to the drug cartels and the human being smugglers that have blazed a path straight through Central America to Mexico, right to our border. And not only that, they're the ones that are driving these refugees, these migrants, not the Venezuelans, that's a whole different situation. But when you talk about Guatemalans and Hondurans and, even Salvadorians, you're talking about folks who are, in many times, are fleeing drug violence. And the irony of it is they're fleeing drug violence and then they're paying the same drug cartels to smuggle them here, because human trafficking has become even more profitable than drug trafficking for these criminal organizations. And here's where you got to read between the headlines. The Washington Post says, the Biden administration has watched democracy crumble in Nicaragua and El Salvador and feared the trend was spreading. Okay, they conveniently leave out Honduras, where there was a coup, and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama decided to embrace the winner of the coup rather than supporting the democratically elected president. And that guy is now on trial because his brother is a drug kingpin. So many of these issues, problems that lead to our air quotes crisis at the border, which is a crisis that goes back decades, right? Our patchwork, racist, generally dumb immigration policy. It's not new to Biden. Wasn't new to Trump. Wasn't new to Obama. It's because, for the most part, politicians are too scared, fearful, to take a strong stand and make a clear policy. But anyway, this guy Arevalo, I think it's these are the good signs. He was polling at 3%. No one gave him a chance in hell to win. He organizes indigenous people. Then the young people get behind him and start a whole campaign on TikTok. Yes, Miles, I'm joining TikTok. And the guy comes from nowhere after the TikTok campaign to place second, goes to the runoff and wins with 60% of the vote. Okay, I know that the idea man, Joe Nixon, says social media is nothing, and in some ways it's not. But if you're directly connected to a group of folks like indigenous people who, Indians, indigenous First Nations folks who have been oppressed and been at the bottom of the caste ladder in much of Latin America, most especially Guatemala, for decades, for generations, and then they have the opportunity to communicate amongst themselves using these tools, then it really can be something. And in this case, to jump from 3% to 60% with almost no money, driven by TikTok and the on-the-ground organizing of indigenous people. And finally, he's sworn in this past weekend after, weeks of these oligarchs that Howard talked about trying to stop him from being sworn in. We're going to have to do some work here to make sure that whoever actually wins our next election does get sworn in, and that we get it to the point, we get our democracy to the point of direct democracy where you can't keep winning the White House and losing the popular vote like Donald Trump did, like George Bush did. It's time to get rid of the Electoral College so our democracy can be, democratic. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Thursday with us here on the Black Information Network. In Illinois, a federal jury is convicting 6 suspected gang members of murdering Chicago rapper FBG Duck, whose real name is Carlton Weekly, back in 2020. A jury found that the defendants conspired to murder the African-American rapper in order to maintain and increase their positions in the gang. Those who were convicted were found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and murder in the aid of racketeering. We're now learning that well over 100 million Americans could be getting a fresh blanket of snow before the weekend. Forecasters say back-to-back storms will spread at least 3 inches of snow across 18 states, from Wyoming to New York today and tomorrow. Travelers should be ready for delays at airports as well as on highways. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers are back at 500 after last night's 17-point win over Dallas at Crypto.com. Anthony Davis messed around and almost got a triple-double. 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists. D'Angelo Russell led the Lakers with 29 points. LeBron had 25 and 9 assists. The Lakers are at home Friday night against Brooklyn. LeBron's son, Bronny James, played a season-high 30 minutes last night in USC's Pac-12 conference game at Arizona. Bronny had 11 points and 6 assists. USC lost by 15. The Trojans are at Arizona State on Saturday. UCLA's men's basketball team overcame a 15-point deficit in the second half to win by 2 at Arizona State. The Bruins got 18 points from Lazar Stefanovic. 2 historic HBCU football programs will play each other for the first time in 75 years. Grambling is hosting Tuskegee on September 7th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't back down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007, they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
COVID-19 renter protections are ending for City of Los Angeles tenants. Know your rights and these 3 facts. February 1st is the deadline to pay rental arrears for rent owed from October 1st, 2021 to January 31st, 2023. Residential tenants cannot be evicted without a reason or just cause. You have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice from the court. Learn more at housing.lacity.org. That's housing.lacity.org. Be informed. Be protected. Be at home.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
And I want to remind you that tomorrow is our weekly feature, Freedman Fridays, and we will be hearing from Dr. Cheryl Grills, who was a member of the California Reparations Task Force and continues to organize around reparations and informing the public and in, moving the legislation. Like here in the state of California, there's a package of legislation which is meant to be follow-up to the recommendations, a 1,200-page recommendation report that the task force issued. And money is an important part of that, of course, continuing to pursue that, focus on that, understand that. But also some of it is doable through legislation. And that is where the public will comes in, because it is what are the lawmakers going to be bold enough to do? And they tend to put their finger in the wind and see where it is blowing. Some polling says that reparations, at least in the form of money, is not popular with the public yet. But if you think about it, even a serious conversation about reparations was considered impossible on the political stage only a few years ago. And that conversation now is in the mainstream. We are having real conversations with mainstream political figures, driven by the people, though, not driven by, politicians saying, oh, yeah, this would be a great idea, but by us pushing and continuing to educate and make sure that folks understand what this is about and why it is a debt and not a luxury, not a handout, not welfare, none of those things. So I just want to continue to, talk about it every week, a comprehensive reparations conversation, not being afraid of the fact that we have many different organizations, as Friday Jones said last week, who may not agree on everything, but who are definitely working to get this thing across the finish line and finding those points of unity, finding those places where we can move the ball forward together, and seeing where in the places where we don't have unity, what we can do to listen to each other and maybe learn from one another's positions and find some spots where the elders are right, find some spots where the younger generations are right, and really continue to push the envelope, because we are making progress. And I think when we don't make a note of that, that's when we lose the work that we have done so far. And that work is not just what you or I have done. It is the work that's been done, is being done, has been done for generations, going all the way back, actually, if you trace it to enslavement. So I hope you'll join me for that tomorrow. And I hope that all of us are getting a little smarter when it comes to when it comes to reparations, understanding what it is, what it can be, and how we play a role in that. I don't know if we needed a report. Sometimes these reports come out and you think, why did we need a report for that? I saw it with my own eyes. But the Justice Department has issued a report about what happened, the shooting in Uvalde, Texas, back in 2022, where 21 people were killed. Those are mostly Latino children, in where we had, famously police like standing around doing nothing, while children were slaughtered inside. The Justice Department basically outlines the failures of that response and for the most part, blames local law enforcement, blames the school officials, but also more elected officials and the police. It's a 575-page report where they just detail all of the fails, the lack of communication, the cowardice, and how we ended up with 19 children and 2 teachers plus the shooter dead. And interestingly enough, it really details how those local police leaders just created more confusion. They were completely disorganized, and that is the reason, or one of the main reasons, why there were 77 minutes between the time that shooting started and the time that the police finally went in and tried to take action. I think, it's important that the Justice Department does this, and I hope that people take away the fact that this is, this is not meant to be a charging document, but it's meant to be an accountability document. And I hope for those who are very interested in keeping our children safe, it also is a reminder that law enforcement alone doesn't do it. And in fact, in many cases, most of the time, it is the teachers, it is the counselors, it is the community that really can keep our children safe in those situations. I told you the judge in the E. Jean Carroll case, this is actually a Donald Trump, I should call it the Donald Trump case, but you'd be confused because there's so many. It's the second civil trial for defamation by Donald Trump against the writer E. Jean Carroll. And this judge has been trying to keep the courtroom tight. It's it's gotten so out of hand that Judge Lewis Kaplan actually is now threatening to throw the former president out of the courtroom. That's because the former president sitting at the table, the defense table, is making loud comments about the judge, talking smack about the judge in court loud enough for the jury to hear it. Anyone else would have been held in contempt of court and probably thrown in jail. I don't understand how people, U.S. voters can watch this and think the guy's not getting a fair shake in court. He's been given so many breaks. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a white person, a blackety black person. If you sit up in court within earshot of the jury and talk smack about the judge, you are not going to stay in that courtroom, and you probably not, probably not going to keep your freedom. And that's why I don't understand how any voter, buys this whiny, I'm the victim, this snowflake victim, wah, 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 persona that so many of these MAGA folks take on, led by whiner-in-chief DJT, he who shall not be named, the Orange Menace. Y'all know who I'm talking about. To me, there's nothing more annoying than a whiny billionaire, a whiny, privileged billionaire. I want you to pay attention to this because I've heard it on our air. I'm not going to point out where. I'm sure you could figure it out. Play follow the words game. And I've heard it a lot more on conservative outlets like CNN. Yeah, I call them a conservative outlet because that's where they are these days. This group, No Labels, which calls itself an independent political group that wants to put forth a candidate, possibly Joe Manchin or someone like that, to run for president. They better hurry up. But in any case, those folks and then so-called third-party candidates like Kennedy, they're getting a lot of money and a lot of play from conservatives and the mainstream media because those people believe that they can take just enough votes away from Joe Biden to help the convict, Don the Con. Well, he's not been convicted yet. And I shouldn't say convict after what I learned from Joe Nixon. We should call him an inmate, a future inmate, not a convict. Go to the podcast if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's free wherever you get your podcasts. They want to give him they want to take away just enough Biden votes to help him win. And he might not need those votes, but he might. You know, you never know. People can wake up and smell the corruption, wake up and smell the indictments. We could, probably very unlikely, to have convictions, although we could definitely have an outcome in this second E. Jean Carroll. I mean, there's so many things that can happen, right? They are trying to undermine and erode the Democratic bloc at a time when Biden's already struggling with low popularity ratings, unpopular foreign policy, and this effective smear campaign that he's too old to be president. And I say if he's too old to be president, so is Trump. These are the candidates we have. I'm not an ageist. Everybody's 80 is not the same. Everybody's 50 is not the same. You know, we all wish we could be glamorous like Maxine Waters at 80, walking the whole King Parade in stilettos and a fancy, cute suit. Fashion goals. Not all of us are able. It should be about your ability, your fitness for office, not your actual age. But if you guys are saying that Biden is too old and Trump's too old too, we have to have a whole do-over. But keep your eyes on these No Labels, these Kennedy candidates. Follow the money. Follow the money. They might not be labeled, but their little generic brand is backed by ultra-conservative deep pockets. I'm Dominique DiPrima for KBLA Talk 1580.
More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Cover California is a free service from the state that's already helped millions of people like you get and pay for health insurance. With financial help to lower the cost of health coverage, you could get a quality health plan for less than $10 a month. Every plan covers preventive care, doctor visits, emergency care, and more. If you have questions, we're here to help every step of the way. Cover California, this way to health insurance. Enroll by January 31st at coveredca.com.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of this light of ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. A dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This light of ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This light of ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Right now, it's the battle of the billionaires with Tesla's CEO, Elon Musk. We should have the Real Housewives of Billionaire Row. Anyway, he's going in on Mark Cuban because Mark Cuban had made statements in support of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Something that Elon Musk has X'd or posted on X, Twitter, the platform he owns, DEI must die. And then he reposted an article or a post by Bill Ackman, the hedge fund billionaire who drove Claudine Gay out of office, whose own wife has been credibly accused of plagiarizing Wikipedia, of all things, and who has now just discovered that DEI is a thing that he wants to dismantle. So Musk tweets, DEI is just another word for racism. Shame on anyone who uses it. It's such an ahistorical viewpoint. And the irony of this coming from a white South African billionaire whose family made their money from emerald mines on the labor of guess who? Oh, they had full diversity, no diversity, but they had full inclusion there. Only black people extracting your wealth that you then went on to, build your little tech platforms and become a billionaire, the owner of multiple companies, Tesla, SpaceX, the Boring Company, etc. The irony of someone who comes from the apartheid nation of South Africa, whose family built their wealth during the apartheid era with emerald mines. Imagine the working conditions. Who's been sued by the state of California in the biggest discrimination lawsuit in the state's history, in a big state's big, long history, for the treatment of black workers in the Tesla factories, which had a special section called the plantation where workers were mistreated, called the N-word and everything else, given the hardest assignments, denied promotions, to the point where our progressive Filipino attorney general brought a case. The irony of him opening his mouth to say DEI is just another word for racism, shame on anyone who uses it, is incredible. You're coming from a country, a whole country that is still deeply in need of DEI. I just visited it last year, where most of the wealth is still concentrated in the hands of white folks who stole it, extracted it from black bodies, colonized it. It's beyond ironic. It is actually enraging. It's actually enraging. So you want to bring your apartheid here. Look, I understand that the South African apartheid business model was largely followed the Jim Crow plan, along with Nazi Germany. And I understand that may be what you mean when you say make America great again. But we're not standing for that. And since when does someone who's not an historian, not an anti-racist, not even an American, get to define what diversity, equity, and inclusion means in this country and what role it plays in this country, who was founded on the enslavement of black people and indigenous people, the enslavement of black people and the genocide of indigenous people. But you get to come over here from your little apartheid state with your little black blood emerald money and tell us what racism is? That's what you get to do. Whoa. Whoa. White privilege much? Look, I've met this guy. I've talked to him. I've been to his house. I thought he was a nice guy. At the time, he seemed like a nice guy. He wasn't wilding out like he is now. And you think, well, maybe all people born and raised by apartheid era South Africans ain't bad. I should have been warned by the fact that his only black friend seems to be Kanye West. I love Ye, don't get me wrong, as an artist. But this, the fact that these two white billionaires are having a cat fight over DEI should also be a canary in the coal mine for those of us, or a canary in the emerald mine, for those of us who are wondering where the next big battle is, right? It's one of those big battles. I know luckily we can fight on multiple fronts at once. And Ron DeSantis is, hanging on by a thread. He's probably not going to last too much longer in the race, even though he said, I think it was yesterday, that if Donald Trump is the nominee, Republicans will lose. I hope he's right. For once, I hope he's right. But I don't think that he is, sadly. I think we're in danger of another Trump presidency. But he certainly has shown leadership, DeSantis, a.k.a. DeSatan, in the area of outlawing DEI. And so we're going to have to think about how we build equity, how we build inclusion, how we build diversity into structures that have systemic racism baked in the cake, on which this DEI is meant to help correct, with even in an era when they're going to be moving to outlaw it. Mark Cuban said, good businesses look where others don't to find the employees that will put your business in the best possible position to succeed. And I love that Mark Cuban said that, because this idea that by having diversity and inclusion and equity, you're getting lesser candidates is a lie. All we're saying is stop locking us out. Give us the opportunity. And we know that diverse businesses do better financially, socially, and in terms of innovation. By extending our hiring to search to include them, we can find people that are more qualified. That's what Mark Cuban said. And that right there is the point that needs to be repeated. It's the talking point that needs to be repeated. By extending our hiring search to include them, we can find people that are more qualified, not less qualified, more qualified, but historically and systemically excluded. That's not racism. That's called fairness. Fairness. DEI is meant to bring fairness. He says the loss of DEI-phobic companies is my gain. I love that. Go on and exclude people and let me make all this money while you over here excluding green dollars from your bottom line because of your white supremacist ideology. You're willing to take the hit to the bottom line because you're so committed to your white supremacist ideology. Put that in your pipe and tweet it. Dr. Jen Jackson is next. We are talking what black women taught us on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Thursday with us here on the Black Information Network. In Illinois, a federal jury is convicting 6 suspected gang members of murdering Chicago rapper FBG Duck, whose real name is Carlton Weekly, back in 2020. A jury found that the defendants conspired to murder the African-American rapper in order to maintain and increase their positions in the gang. Those who were convicted were found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and murder in the aid of racketeering. We're now learning that well over 100 million Americans could be getting a fresh blanket of snow before the weekend. Forecasters say back-to-back storms will spread at least 3 inches of snow across 18 states, from Wyoming to New York today and tomorrow. Travelers should be ready for delays at airports as well as on highways. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org. Is this the time?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers are back at 500 after last night's 17-point win over Dallas at Crypto.com. Anthony Davis messed around and almost got a triple-double. 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists. D'Angelo Russell led the Lakers with 29 points. LeBron had 25 and 9 assists. The Lakers are at home Friday night against Brooklyn. LeBron's son, Bronny James, played a season-high 30 minutes last night in USC's Pac-12 conference game at Arizona. Bronny had 11 points and 6 assists. USC lost by 15. The Trojans are at Arizona State on Saturday. UCLA's men's basketball team overcame a 15-point deficit in the second half to win by 2 at Arizona State. The Bruins got 18 points from Larza Stefanovic. 2 historic HBCU football programs will play each other